So I've been talking about fight or flight being our response to threat, whether that threat is real or perceived. Our bodies mount the same physiological response whether we're annoyed sitting in traffic or running away from a woolly mammoth. It may not be quite to the same degree, but the response is the same. When we're in fight or flight, our energy and blood are diverted from non essential functions to allow more energy for emergency functions. By the way, non essential functions include digestion and healing. Ever notice that you have digestive issues when you're stressed? Because fight or flight shuts down your digestion. Blood drains from the prefrontal cortex of the brain, so there's no rational thought. This makes it difficult to learn new things, focus on small tasks, or engage with other people as the lower parts of the brain are focused on survival and escape. I also talked about how deep breaths can help counter the fight or flight response. Just yesterday, I learned that extending the exhalation, making it as long as the inhalation, or even better, making it longer, will naturally engage the parasympathetic wing of the nervous system. The parasympathetic wing of the nervous system is the natural counter to or compensator for the fight or flight sympathetic wing of the nervous system. Every morning, the first thing I do while I'm still in bed and my eyes are closed is a few minutes of focused, deep breathing. And I hope you've all been starting your mornings with the same. Focusing on deep breaths in and deep breaths out isn't just about relaxation. It's also to practice turning our attention to one thing over and over and over again until we basically develop a muscle in our mind that allows us to direct our attention where we want it to go. I'll go more into why that's important in a future video. In addition to focused deep breathing first thing when I wake up, I've been setting my alarm at intervals throughout the day to take 5-minute deep breathing breaks. Since my lifelong habit has been shallow breathing, I don't default to deeper breaths, so I want to make that more of a habit. I got a lot out of reading a book by Kristen Neff titled Self-Compassion, Stop Beating Yourself Up and Leave Insecurity Behind. I didn't buy the book, I borrowed it from the library. She notes how the fight or flight system was designed by evolution to deal with physical attacks, but it's activated just as readily by emotional attacks from others or ourselves. I'll be the first to admit to being highly self-critical. I think it goes hand in hand with perfectionism. Do you berate yourself after making a mistake? My inner critic has got the mouth of a sailor. I've criticized myself in ways I would never speak to someone else. It's been my default for most of my life. The words we use with ourselves are so powerful. Harsh, critical words are damaging. Positive, nurturing words are healing. Now, after I make a mistake, I first blurt out, oops, or oopsie daisy, because that's much less harsh than, what the fuck is wrong with you? I also ask myself, what can I learn from this? I listen to the Happiness podcast by Dr. Puff, and this is something he emphasizes a lot. I'll post a link below if you want to check out the podcast. Something else he points out is to be not only less critical of ourselves, but also less critical of other people. Because when we're less critical of other people when they mess up, when we mess up, we'll be gentler too. Even without making a specific mistake, my self-talk can be incredibly harsh. I can't even keep house. Who would ever want to be with me? I hate myself. Hoarding disorder is rife with vicious circles. I set out to declutter. When I don't succeed in throwing things out, it's easy to get down on myself. Why can't I just throw things out like a normal person? What is wrong with me? I'm never going to get out of this mess. That only makes me feel worse about myself and keeps me stuck. Then there are the self-limiting beliefs like, I don't matter, I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable. And I still struggle with feelings of shame. I've mentioned before that I've worked with a hypnotherapist. It can be intimidating to seek therapy. For one thing, it's not cheap, and you're not going to click with every therapist. The last psychiatrist I saw seriously made me nuttier than before I started going to him. I would show up for my appointment. He wasn't even at the office yet, and I would wait so long for him to arrive that I started bringing lunch with me. Or while I was parking my car to go see him, his assistant would call my cell to tell me that he had to cancel. When you're in a bad place, having difficulty just getting through the day, the notion of shopping for a good therapist can be overwhelming. I was super lucky to find this hypnotherapist on my first try. She hadn't treated hoarding disorder before, but her aunt had the condition, so it wasn't completely foreign to her. Plus, she's such an incredible human being, full of compassion, who truly wants to help you. In the past, I did years of traditional talk therapy. While it was certainly helpful, I felt like I plateaued at a certain point. With the hypnotherapist, she was able to guide me to breakthroughs on some issues that years of talk therapy hadn't cracked. I'm a very thinky person, and sometimes only talking about stuff can become a mental maze for me. With the hypnotherapist, I relinquish control and follow her lead as she guides me. On top of working with her, I found a lot of videos with a hypnotherapist named Marisa. Her videos have also helped me tremendously. In this one, she talks about how the words we use form our reality and how we can improve our dialogue with ourselves. She mentions a CD for confidence and self-esteem, but she didn't say how you go about getting it. I found a hypnosis recording of hers elsewhere. If you want to have a listen, you can access it with the link below. Obviously, you don't want to listen to a hypnosis recording while doing anything like driving or operating machinery. Make sure you're in a safe, quiet space where you can lie down. When I first started telling myself positive, nurturing things, it felt really awkward and weird and uncomfortable because it was completely foreign to me. I liken it to writing with my opposite hand. I write with my right hand without even thinking about it because I've done it my entire life. It's deeply ingrained. When I try to write with my left hand, it takes all my concentration and still comes out like chicken scratch. But just as I can learn to write with my opposite hand, I can learn to talk to myself more positively. And I have. The more I practice, the easier it becomes. You know, if I talked to myself the way I talk to my cats, I'd have the biggest head in the world and think I was the sweetest, prettiest, smartest thing on earth. Being more mindful of the way I talk to myself has been a huge part of the shift I've experienced recently. I catch myself when I say things like, I'm going to try, or I hope, because those words imply I'm not going to actually do it. Instead, I say, I'm going to, or I will. Even the words, I have to. Instead of, oh, I have to make more food for my cats, I say, oh, I get to make more food for my cats. Because if I didn't get to make more food for my cats, it might be that they're ill and have no appetite, or that they're no longer with me. Okay, that's plenty for today. Your homework is to pay attention to your self-talk. Do you criticize yourself a lot? Do you have self-limiting beliefs? And if so, what kinds of good things can you tell yourself instead? If you listen to the podcast, video, or audio I shared, please let me know in the comments if you found them helpful.